All right, so last week, if you weren't here, I want to catch you up. We're talking about be the power of the word all month. And last week, Dr. Petra delivered a phenomenal message. Yes? Yes. Phenomenal. You can clap. I heard one. Phenomenal message on what is this incredible spiritual technology. The only original thing that we know of that Ernest Holmes brought to the planet while he was here. Everything else has been here all along. And she talked about what this spiritual technology known as spiritual mind treatment is and what it's all about in a way that is so profound. So I invite everyone to listen to that message, June 2nd, 2019. Right. And she talked about the first step. There are 5 steps. She talked about the first step, and the first step is recognition. And she talked about what recognition is. And it boils down to the God is all in all. Spirit, universe, whatever we choose to name it. It's the all in all. There's nothing else. No thing. That's it. This beautiful, beautiful book, that is our book of the month. There's no excuse. It's not a very thick book. And yet it's so rich by Stephanie Sorensen, the Sacred Continuum, and she's talking about this spiritual technology. I invite you all to read this. It's not thick. And in recognition, she starts her chapter off. She does with each step with a couple of quotes. And so she starts that recognition chapter off with Isaiah 45 that says, "For I am God, and there is none else." So it's been here all along. And so it's about this recognition of the presence that is everywhere, simultaneously, always, and always. Okay? We good? Step 1. Got it. Now, the second step is known as what? Unification. Yes, that's how we tend to refer to it, is unification. Not too long ago, I wondered why it took me several years after being here in Dallas, but it was on a Wednesday night during our meditation in metaphysics that Dr. Petra does. Yet another plug for you, just so you know. Because we want you, whether you're here or not, to watch that meditation in metaphysics. She, for the first time I had heard, or at least consciously aware that I had heard, that there was this other word in addition to unification for this step, and it's called identification. Identification. So, how do we identify ourselves? Female? Male? Do I have a male in the house? Oh, there's one. Thank goodness. So, woman, man, do we identify ourselves? How else could we identify ourselves? Mother, daughter, job title, sister, father, aunt, straight, gay, etc. African, religion, right? Political, right? All that good stuff. How do we identify ourselves? Right. So this is where I'm going to begin to clear up a very deep, grave, huge misunderstanding. There's been a big misunderstanding. And it's been taught for a very, 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 very long time. And it's continued to be taught. And it's this big understanding that actually impacts not only our life, but everything and everyone around us. Have you ever, any misunderstanding, before I go any further, you've had some misunderstandings in your life? Maybe a misunderstanding between your spouse or a partner? How'd that work out for a while? Not really good, did it? Misunderstanding, right? This is when you laugh. See? How about with a boss or a coworker? How long has a misunderstanding, taken place until we go back and go, well, at the point that misunderstanding occurred, actually what I was saying and what I meant was this. And then someone goes, really? That's not what I understood. I thought you meant this. And we've been what since? We've been separate. We've not been as unified as we could be because of that misunderstanding. It's a big one. And so we know what it feels like in our own individual lives or in the collective lives about some misunderstanding. I mean, it happens on a one-on-one person basis. It happens, we've had some misunderstandings here in this community and it stirred some stuff up. Right? It's happened in companies. One could say, well, when I say this, you can ship the product, and there's a misunderstanding, and they thought that was the point to ship the product, and then there's all this recall, or whatever, right? I'm sure that there have been misunderstandings between leaders of countries, you think? Once or twice? Yes. So relationships, jobs, families, any kind of relationships. And so this big, grave misunderstanding is that we are separate from the one. We're separate from the one. We're separate from God. We're separate from Spirit. And it's a grave misunderstanding. So this first step, remember, God is all in all. There's no thing outside of it. God is all in all. And if God is all in all, then what she says, Stephanie Sorensen said, is then there cannot be God and anything else, including ourselves. Okay, how many people right now in this moment intellectually get this? Yeah. How many people, no matter how many times around the sun we've traveled, pretty much live it most of our life? Yay, we've got a few. And so there can't be anything separate, including ourselves. There is no separation. And this changes everything because we actually are not dual in nature. It's not our nature. There is no dualism. And yet, isn't there a lot of talk of dualism? There is. And we hear that. Many of us probably come from some faith traditions where we heard that so much. The Father in heaven, the God outside of me, right? How long did we hear that? Probably not just one day. It's perpetuatory, and yet it's not in our nature. It's not our true nature. It's not our spiritual nature. There is no such thing as two. There's only one. I not attempting to shift in this moment an awareness, an awakening of all or some of the major religions, right? But if we look at the roots of all major religions, it is there. It has been and it always shall be. It's just what is, as Michael said earlier, what are we calling out? What are we looking at? What are the perspective? And the perspective that we have can change everything. And so I want us to move from a place of there's only one. The Father and I are one. Mother, Father, God, and I are one. Thank you. Father, Mother, God. And then our experience won't be alienation, won't be separation on an individual and then collective level. She really does a great job of talking about this on page 36. She says, when we do not consciously dwell in that sacred space of spiritual understanding in which we know that we are one with that presence always, we miss out on the joy inherent in God's intention for us, i.e., the kingdom of heaven. We do not feel the empowerment that comes from a constant awareness of what we are already. And rather than experiencing the ceaseless good that God intended, our days often unfold in a chain of unfortunate and painful experiences. Anybody have unfortunate and painful experiences, or am I the only one? I got the t-shirt. This constant awareness, this sacred continuum. Without our conscious unification with universal creative power, which is always giving form to our every thought and word through our unbroken, irrevocable intercourse with it, we do not experience the freedom of knowing the power behind and in our word moment to moment. Our time is often spent in the disempowering and futile search for fulfillment in a world of material things that we perceive as separate from ourselves. We struggle to accumulate wealth, acquire health, find love, achieve peace, and manufacture joy out of material substance, and seek spiritual substance and a conscious unification with Spirit only when we run into the roadblock, setback, pain, and suffering we've created through our daily misunderstanding of who we are already. So I know that there are times that I get really good at realizing that I am one with, I am one as, when things aren't going well. But see how this little hamster on the wheel sort of works? When I don't know that, then things don't go well, and then things don't go well, and then I got to think about it, and if I don't think about it constantly, then things don't go well, and then they don't go well, and then I got to come back to thinking about it. Anybody else on this? So then we pray for the revelation of Spirit in our life, when in actuality the one life has been present as our life all along. Unification, identification. Things really shifted for me in doing spiritual mind treatment when a practitioner at Oakland Center for Spiritual Living, after my mock panels before becoming a licensed practitioner, said, I invite you to play with dropping the word with and using the word as. So I am the universal creative power. I am one as Spirit. I am one as universe. I am one as God. So this step, and Ernest Holmes and many, many people believe that the first and the second step is really what it's all about. There's only Spirit, God, universe, and I am one with that. I am one as that. See, that drops the duality. With makes me think I got to come and be with it. There's only one. I am one as that. And as we hang out in those two steps in this sacred continuum, every time in our relationships, in our relationships, in our relationships, in our jobs, in our nation, and we keep hanging out that there's only one thing happening, Spirit, God, universal presence, and therefore I must be it as you are, but I'm hanging out knowing that there's not two, there's only one, everything changes. It's a sacred continuum for our life. And the thing that I love is in our source text, the Science of Mind textbook, the final conclusion, the absolute final conclusion of what Ernest Holmes says to put the period on the entire source text is, he says, the essence of spiritual mind treatment is an inner realization of the presence and perfection within and around about. It is the hope of heaven, the voice of God proclaiming, I am that which thou art that which I am. And so in being in a continual sacred continuum, and we need tools and we need experiences and practices to keep us on this continuum, this constant awareness that there's only one thing happening all the time, and that one thing is me as you. We get the experience more of it over and over and over again, and we are in that more constant state. And so Petra's going to give us an opportunity for us to feel what that is like, to have an experience, to be in this sacred continuum.
And so as Karen so beautifully said and asked how many of us know this intellectually, that is a fabulous place to start, right, is to know it intellectually. But ultimately, we actually have to have the experience of it. And as Karen just said, we have lots of practices, lots of ways in which we seek to create an awareness of this oneness. And so we're going to practice that together this morning. This will be an extended, guided visualization. And so, guided imagery. And so some people will say, well, I don't really visualize very well. And actually, you don't have to. What you have to do is simply be intentional. And so I'm going to guide you with my words, and I'm going to invite you to just intentionally decide that as you set your intention with the words that I'm saying, that these things actually are happening. That this is actually an imaginative state in which this is actually taking place. You don't necessarily have to see anything. You don't necessarily have to feel anything, although you may. And it really is just simply allowing your intention to follow the words that I speak, so that perhaps we can open ourselves to the experience. Okay, are you game? All right. So what I'm going to invite you to do then is to just put your feet flat on the floor. Actually, if you have a meditation position, you might want to invite yourself into that so that your body already knows that we are moving out of the physical space-time continuum. And put your feet on the floor just to allow yourself to settle. Settle in your chair. Uncross your arms and legs, and take a breath. That breath is the centering breath, and so we breathe that breath into the center of our being. And simply at your own pace, take a few breaths. And as you breathe, feel yourself fully supported by the chair. Close your eyes so that you're not visually distracted. Allow your body to settle. And take another breath. And just notice that here we sit. And you might recognize that there are sounds around you, and you can feel perhaps the movement of the air on your skin, and perhaps there's the light that shines through your eyelids. And so here we are, very, very present, right here in this moment. And so let us take a moment over the next few minutes. We're going to take some time to explore and experience this idea, this notion of our spiritual identity. So we begin right now by simply allowing our consciousness to cast itself into the future of our lives. You have things that you're planning to do this afternoon and next week, and maybe you have vacation planned. Maybe you have plans for new work or creative endeavors. Maybe you have plans all the way out to retirement, children, whatever those plans are, out into the future. Imagine them stretching out to your right, like a timeline off into the distance. All of those future plans and ideas and possibilities. And then you might imagine, as you gaze off to the left in your mind's eye, that there stretches your past. Yesterday and last week and last month and last year, and all the way through your career and into your schooling and your adolescence and into your childhood and all the way back. You can go back further if you choose. It's not required, into the womb, into pre-existing times. So we have this timeline that stretches all the way out into the left, into infinity, and into the right, into the infinite future beyond our death, into new expressions of life. We sort of feel ourselves in this moment right here in the middle of that continuum. And as you feel and sense these timelines that are moving out in each direction, I'm just going to invite us now to simply let them go. Release them from your conscious awareness. Release them altogether. Imagine that they float off into the nothingness. And you're right here in this moment, without a past and without a future. Just right here in this moment. And as we are aware of this moment, we are aware that we live in lives and that our lives have lots and lots and lots of things that we're engaged in. We are currently engaged in work, and we are currently engaged in family, and we are currently engaged in all kinds of activities in our lives. And I invite you, as you imagine in your mind's eye all the things that you're engaged in, all the doingness, and maybe you garden, and maybe you paint, and maybe you're building a business, and maybe you're raising a child, and maybe you're in a relationship, and maybe you're not, and maybe you're seeking to heal, and maybe you're whatever it is that your life is engaged with and involved in. And simply imagine all of that crowding into the space in front of you in a big, giant bubble. Imagine a giant bubble into which all these things are going on, all the things that you do and all the things that you're active in, all your hobbies and all your self-improvement and all of that. Just imagine all of that in a giant bubble. That bubble is probably even bigger than you are as it stretches out in front of you. And how grateful we are for all these activities and all of these ways in which we engage in life. And now I simply want you in your mind's eye to intentionally release that bubble. Just simply allow it to separate from you and to float off into the distance, into nothing. Simply release it all. Let it float away. And breathe right here, right now. We're right here, right now. There's nothing we need to do. But be right here, right now. And now I invite you to imagine that behind you is a giant bubble, just like the one that you no longer have in front of you. There's a giant bubble, and in that bubble you begin to notice are all of your qualities, your roles, the things that you say about yourself. I'm an Aries. I was traumatized as a child. I have these stories that I tell about myself. I have these ways in which I show up as my personality and the things that I'm carrying around as old ideas, shame and blame and uncertainty and unworthiness, all those old stories, all the old programming, all that we are aware of and not aware of, all the ways in which we excuse ourselves, give alibis to ourselves, or simply say, well, that's my personality, that's my trauma, that's what I have to work with. And just imagine that all of those things are filling up that bubble in the back. Anything that's repressed or suppressed, anything that is in the subjective or subconscious mind that has been written there by ourselves, by our families, by our culture, our country, our world, by humanity itself. Let's just imagine that bubble gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of those things are floating around in there, and some of them are words and images, and we might not even have visual sense of any of it. But it's all back there, and we see our bubble growing and growing and growing till it's probably bigger than we are. And when we feel everything has been put into that bubble, I simply invite you in your mind's eye to simply allow that bubble to detach itself from you and to float off into the distance, taking all of that with it as it fades off into nothingness. And here we sit, right here, right now, in this moment, in this body, on this chair, feeling this air. And now I want you to notice as you sit here, all of the little strands that tie you to other people, all of the little light that moves out from you, that ties you to your loved ones, your family, your children, your parents, your friends, this community, the people that you hang out with. Just notice all of those little ties, those little strings that move off into the distance and connect you with people and places. And most importantly, the relationships. Mother, child, father, son, brother, friend, boss, worker. And I want you now gently, very gently in your mind's eye, to simply release all of those ties. Imagine that all of those float off as if they were balloons, and the strings simply float off into the sky. Every string released. Do not be afraid. Just let them go for the moment. And here we sit. Right here in this now moment. In this body. On this chair. Feeling this air around us. Listening to the sound of this voice. And breathe. Feel the quiet. And now in your mind's eye, simply imagine that your body is so comfortable, so supported, so absolutely taken care of in this moment that you no longer have to pay any attention to it. It simply sits here, absolutely still and safe and protected in every possible way. So you no longer have to notice it in any way. Allow the body and all of your physical sensations to fade from your conscious awareness. Simply following the sound of my voice. Let everything else disappear. And simply notice. Notice that in releasing absolutely everything, including the physical reality, you are still here. And in this place, unimpinged, you might notice that you begin to expand. For there's nothing weighing you down. There's nothing holding you in. There's nothing limiting you or confining you. And so you expand. And you expand. And you might notice that you expand to fill the room. You might notice that you expand in every direction. So let go of not only our bodies, but any physical image at all. We'll let go of the earth and the solar system and the galaxies. And yet, we continue to expand. Allow your awareness to expand out in every direction. Notice that as you do so, you can expand into infinity. For there's no limitation. And if you can expand into infinity, and infinity is the one infinite reality, that means you expand. And you are the oneness. Expanding as the whole. Just allow yourself to be aware of how hugely infinite you have grown. Your awareness has become aware of awareness itself, the infinite consciousness that is the cosmos. And here in this infinite reality, there are no limitations, no lack, nothing but pure, unadulterated presence. In this infinite awareness that you are now. Invite in your mind's eye the consciousness of love. Love saturating that infinite reality. Notice that there is all the love everywhere present. Pick any quality: peace, abundance, joy, wholeness, perfection. Whichever quality speaks to you in this moment, simply call that quality forward out of the infinite. Notice how perfectly present it is in its entirety, in everywhere. Take a moment or two in the silence to revel in your conscious awareness of the infinite presence of this quality. And so you notice that there is no place in your infinite awareness where this quality is not present. For you and it are the same. You are now the infinite as that. And you know that this is the truth of your being. And you, as the unique you that you are the infinite, having chosen to be you. And so this quality that has saturated your awareness is always here, has always been here, and is the truth. And this infinite reality is the identity that is your spiritual truth, the wholeness of who you are. And so, with that conscious awareness, I invite you now to begin to breathe slowly and gently into the awareness of your body. Notice that you do not have to shrink your infinite self to fit inside of it. You simply have to bring your awareness of your body forward. And so you are now both infinite, the quality that you have chosen, and you begin to notice, that a part of you takes form. Notice your body as an anchor into the space-time continuum. But nothing has changed about your infinite self. You have just acquired a body to play and express and to take that quality and to notice that it is still absolutely present in every aspect of your being. And it now permeates every cell, every molecule, every atom, every subatomic particle of your body, because your body is inside you. And it is the vehicle and the beautiful expression that you have chosen so that you can play in creation. And the ways in which you play in creation is through your dreams of the future. And so you might bring those dreams of the future back into your conscious awareness and notice that they too are saturated with this infinite reality, and your awareness of that particular quality is just as present in all of that future that you now notice that you are choosing. Notice that all of your balloons begin to come back and all of those relationships re-emerge in your awareness. But your infinite reality hasn't changed. The infinite truth of who you are hasn't changed. All of those relationships are ways in which your life is expressing. And if there are any you don't want to reattach, you don't need to. Just attach those you want and love and allow and make room for. Notice that you can bring forward your past and see how beautifully it is held in that infinite reality. And it too is fully saturated by the quality that you recognized. You can bring forward everything that you are doing in your life. Bring that bubble back of all the things you do. You can bring back all the things that you have held in your consciousness about yourself. Or don't bring certain parts of it back. You don't need to. Because none of those things are the truth of who you are. They are simply vehicles of expression, like your body, like your relationships, like the things you do and the things you believe about yourself and your past and your future. Do you see how all of this is contained within this infinite reality, which is the truth of who you are? Nothing changes that. Nothing touches that in any way. It saturates, lifts all that you place in it. And so here we sit, knowing the truth of our identity, We are the infinite, bringing the qualities of life and love and peace and abundance, wholeness, joy, presence, harmony, and order. We are bringing all of that into each and every aspect of our lives. This is who we are. And our lives are the Play-Doh of creation with which we co-create a glorious, glorious expression we call my life. My loves, my relationships, my work, my passion, my commitments, my intentions. And so here we sit again as we breathe into this moment, fully restored into our lives, coming to them from an entirely different understanding of who we are. And with this, we heal this deep misunderstanding. For we stand in the truth of our being. And so now I invite you, as you open your eyes and you take in the visual aspect of life itself, I invite you to open your eyes and I invite you to look around. Look around, look around, and see there is the infinite reality showing up, and there is the infinite reality, and there, and there, and there, and there, and there. For the deepest truth we know is that the infinite reality, the one, is a circle whose center is everywhere, whose center is everywhere, and whose circumference, whose edge is nowhere. And so it is.